Bronx Journal. I'm your guest host, Sheila Aquara, sitting in for Professor Miguel Perez. Do you appreciate the Bronx River? It serves as an escape from the loud city life and allows Bronxites to enjoy a peaceful walk or go for biking and even boating. Do you know there's an organization devoted to keeping the river clean and vibrant? Joining us today from the Bronx River Alliance is Deputy Director Maggie Greenfield and Board Chair Kellie Sepulveda. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, tell me, what made you create the Bronx Alliance?
Well, the Bronx River Alliance, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary this year. So we were created back in 2001, and we actually grew out of community activism to restore the river, which dates back to the 1970s, but had a revival in the 1990s from a group of community leaders who were really interested in seeing the Bronx River recognized as a resource for Bronx communities. And so they came together and formed the Bronx River Working Group as volunteers, developed a plan, and started raising money for the Bronx River. And when they raised about $80 million, they said, okay, this project has legs. Let's create an organization, a nonprofit, to steward this money and keep it directed towards the community vision for restoring the river and developing the system of trails and parks along its banks.
Okay, and where exactly is it located?
Well, the Bronx River flows down through the very center of the Bronx, the heart of the Bronx. It actually flows 23 miles, so it starts way up in Westchester County at the Kensico Reservoir and flows 15 miles through Westchester County and then another 8 miles through the Bronx until it empties out into the East River.
Okay, and in what condition was the river in exactly when you found it, before you started?
Well, if someone went out to the river in the late 90s, they would have seen a river full of cars. I think that's one of the things a lot of people talked about mostly.
Full of cars?
The number of cars that were in the river. Kellie, do you want to talk to that?
Absolutely. I mean, back then it was it was barely recognized as a river. And if you would ask folks that lived in the community, they might live maybe 5 blocks away from the Bronx River, and they had no idea it was a river. They knew more about it being a parkway, and myself included, as a Bronx girl, born and raised, I didn't really realize that there was a Bronx River until I was an adult.
Right.
But essentially, it like a lot of the disinvestment that happened in the Bronx during the 1970s, our environmental resource of the Bronx River was one of them. So cars, all sorts of
and when you
tires.
say cars, were there cars inside the river?
There were cars inside of the river.
How did they get there?
We don't want to. We don't want to know.
Okay.
I don't know that we want to know how they got there.
Right.
But it was, it was a shameful waste of a beautiful, beautiful resource. And so the activism, as oftentimes it does, really shed light on the need to treat this resource with dignity and respect,
right,
just like the people of the Bronx deserve.
Mm-hmm. Because for a long time, people just treated the river as a place to dump their garbage and
right,
to dump their cars. And so people really thought of the river as just a dumping ground and not a place of beauty or something to be respected. And so the efforts of the people who really came together in the late 90s to form the Bronx River Alliance were to say, let's really transform the way that we see this river and the way that we can all see this river into not a place where we turn our backs and we dump our trash, but a place where we can come and experience New York City's only freshwater river. It's a really unique place in New York City and in the whole region.
So talk to me about the cleaning process. What did you do? How did you start? Because to get these cars out, was it expensive?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually the National Guard got involved. Nice. And brought out a crane and worked with partner groups like Youth Ministries for Peace and Justice, who worked in the Bronx River neighborhood and who involved youth in going out and mapping in the river where the cars were so they could hand it to the National Guardsmen and say, here's where these cars are and come help us pull them out. So in a couple days, I believe, in the late 90s, they pulled out dozens of cars out of the river. So there were big projects like that. There's also been lots of little projects where people come out and bring their gloves and their trash bags and just help picking up the litter they see along the river. And we do that until today.
Number of volunteers.
Yeah, and another really amazing thing that I found to be so inspiring was the ability of folks to really reclaim waterfront space on their own. So Maggie mentioned a really amazing group, Youth Ministries for Peace and Justice, that were such a driving force in restaking their claim to then, what is now a wonderful concrete plant park. was once just an abandoned waterfront space. But before the investment came, it was sweat equity, it was commitment, and it was, just wild, vast vision, where they just went in there and they made way for community to gather there first. So there were many years where, with not a lot of investment, with not a lot of money, capital investment, what I would say, they really took their own resources and activated that space for the community. And the same held true for Hunts Point as well. The community groups like the Point, and Sustainable South Bronx really thought it was important to put the resources of the community in first, and to show that people respected this and wanted this. So we cleaned it up ourselves, organizationally speaking. The Point didn't receive any huge grants to clean up that little space, or the Alliance, or Youth Ministries for Peace and Justice. We had to find our own resources first, clean those things up, bring art, bring culture, and events and people down to the river.
What type of events? To
demonstrate that we really wanted it as a resource. The Golden Ball is a wonderful example.
What goes on in the Golden Ball?
Let me allow Maggie to explain that beautiful process.
The Golden Ball was a vision of artists, actually, as a way to bring people together along the length of the river, because rivers, of course, are long and skinny, and so people may live in the northern part of the Bronx, along the Bronx River, and they may not know the folks who live along the southern part of the Bronx River. So the Golden Ball was this idea of saying, let's take this big golden ball and we're going to float it down the river, and we're going to have artists doing dancing along the banks of the river. We're going to have people out there cleaning up trash. We're going to all be active, and we're all going to celebrate this river that connects us. And so from, I believe, 1997 through 2007, the Golden Ball was an annual event where we involved people in paddling the Golden Ball down the river and having different activities along the length of the river's banks. Now we've transformed that into the Bronx River Festival, which is a big party we have every summer for the Bronx River. And we'll be having it again this summer, probably in June. So it's a great time for folks to come out who've been longtime fans of the Bronx River, who've never maybe heard of the Bronx River, or maybe not even seen the Bronx River before, to come out and bike with us, paddle with us on the Bronx River. We lead free, paddling trips. Maybe get involved in planting some trees with us. There's usually groups giving away trees, and it's just a great time to learn about this amazing resource that we have in our backyards.
Okay, and I know you talked about funding. Now, in the past, you did it on your own, but do you receive any major funding, like from the government? How was that?
Well, I'll make a broad statement, and then you can talk more specifically about the capital projects. But, I think that funding has always been a critical aspect, obviously. But Maggie mentioned, that there was a large awareness and investment of capital dollars that came to the river from all sorts of resources, but mainly through activism of elected officials, right? Like Congressman Serrano, who made sure that when there were federal resources, that the Bronx River was receiving them, and making sure that the Bronx got our fair share of those resources. So there's been quite a large capital investment and commitment from not only now the federal government, but from the state and the city. So we're very fortunate to receive that type of support.
Okay. That's right. Over $120 million has been pledged for Bronx River Greenway and Bronx River improvement projects. And in addition to that, there's been a NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, has partnered with the Bronx Zoo in administering a federal program. This is together with Congressman Serrano, which provides grant money for different nonprofits and organizations who want to do their own cleanup projects along the Bronx River, or education projects with students to say, let's bring kids out and let's do science on the Bronx River. So that's also been a really important way for community groups to get involved in all the different activities that they can do, and to really harness the power of local communities and continuing to see the Bronx River with fresh eyes.
Okay. And how can people help to improve the river? Like if I wanted to come and help you guys How can I contribute?
Definitely. Well, we love volunteers, and we always need volunteers on the Bronx River, so there's plenty to do. We have a conservation crew, which is a 10-member crew of people from the Bronx who work on the river every day doing restoration plantings, clearing blockages on the river, and folks, they also work with local volunteers to engage them in those same projects. People can come out and help us with our paddling program. Last year we brought over 2,000 people out on the river in canoes and kayaks, and if you're someone who loves to be outdoors, you can come out with us and help lead trips and bring school kids out on the river. There's all kinds of different ways. We have an education program. We have what we call the Stewards program, which is folks adopt a section of the river and go out and do water quality sampling of their portion of the river, so that we have data about water quality and how it changes over time. And so if people are interested in like their particular little area of the river, maybe that's right down the block from their house, they can contact us. We can get them trained and set up with equipment to monitor the water quality. So there's all kinds of ways to get involved.
Absolutely, and let me add, one important aspect that I think that we haven't really highlighted is the fact that Bronx River Alliance, the word alliance isn't just in name, but it is really truly in practice. And the alliance is an amalgamation of many groups. So it consists of like The Point. I'm executive director of The Point. There's Rocking the Boat. There's Youth Ministries for Peace and Justice. So I think organizationally speaking, there are many ways to contribute in terms of not only volunteering, but just engaging in events. But awareness is also important too, talking about the Bronx River if you're a teacher, if you're an educator, if you're a mom, if you're a parent. Just talking about the river and allowing opportunities for family members to get engaged. Like I took my mom out this year for the first time on the flotilla on the Bronx River, but she, I'm not going to say how old she is because although she looks 15, she would still kill me. But the point is that she grew up in Hunts Point. And she had never been on the Bronx River. And I think that we all deserve as bronxites to see our borough in that beautiful way. And, I'm going to say, one other critical key to our success are resources. So funding is very key to us. And yes, while government funding allows the Alliance to implement and build parks and capital projects, those things are only as good as the people who fill them. And really the mission of the Alliance is about people. And when individuals contribute to us, it allows us the ability to direct resources into things like volunteers, into things like hiring Bronx crew members to really work and beautify the river. It allows us to get Bronx kids out on that river. So and our appeal season, is right in time for the calendar year and for the holiday season. So we're hoping if folks are feeling generous, please, no donation is too small for us.
Okay.
And so you can go on our website at www.bronxriver.org and find information on that. And also we're having a winter assembly coming up on February 28th, which is a wonderful way to get to know our education programs if people want to come find out what we're about.